We've all been there. You start a weight loss challenge and you're going hard, you're eating healthy food, you're working out. You've only lost 2 pounds, and somebody else on the internet or your best friend has lost 8 pounds. And now you start to wonder, are you doing something wrong? Are you failing? Is your plan not as good as their plan? What the heck is going on? Well, don't worry, because in this episode of the Eric Roberts Fitness Podcast, myself and my assistant coach, Mary, will be teaching you exactly what is going on and why you don't need to freak out. Isn't that right, Coach Mary?
Yeah, I'm excited for this topic, especially with the Clubhouse 8-week challenge about to start. We can
There you
share some
go.
good facts, some good
There you
info,
go. Way to
get it out
plug the
there.
8-week challenge. Let's go. We love it. Actually, I'll put this podcast out on Monday. Today's the final day to join the 8-week challenge. So if you want to join Mary, that's when you should join Mary in the 8-week challenge. So join, click the link in the show notes below. But no, we are excited to talk about this podcast. And I think this is a message I get a lot just from people on my social media. I get emails a lot on this. And so maybe I'll ask you on this, Mary. How often would you say you get messages from clients that are something along the lines of, "I'm doing everything right. Why is it taking so long? Why is the scale not going down?" Like how common is that?
Oh, I would think with the number of people we coach, I see that message at least once a week, like why isn't progress faster? So it's definitely something we talk through. And not that they're not seeing any, but they just would like it to be more, or they might be moving into that comparison thing where they're looking at, a random coworker or someone they see at the gym who seems to be making faster progress.
Yeah. And that's maybe the first thing that I want to dive into. And so for people listening, we're going to try to dive into both the physiological aspects of making progress, the lifestyle aspects of the rate of progress, and also the kind of the mental side of making quote unquote faster progress. But the first place I want to start is everybody's starting point is different, right? Like we will have people come to us who want to lose 100 pounds. And then we have people come to us who might quote unquote only want to lose 10 or 20 pounds. And so I think the first concept that people need to understand is if you lose 5 pounds of 100 pounds, like, no, maybe you won't physically see on your body the difference quite just yet. Versus if someone only has 10 pounds they want to lose, they might see a difference from losing those 5 initial pounds. So everybody's starting point is a little bit different. And I always use this analogy, but it always hits home. So I will use it again. It's like if you had a fresh roll of paper towels and you tear off 5 sheets. It's not going to look that different yet, but that doesn't mean that progress isn't happening. So we have to understand, even while we may not see these sort of physical changes, and Mary said we'll discuss what progress actually looks like here in the podcast, but just because you don't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. So that's kind of the first component of a starting point. And I'll throw it over to you, Mary. So I think we actually talked about this in our coaches meeting. It was about working out and like percentages of weights increased. But could you maybe talk about, like, if somebody's 200 pounds and they lose a pound versus if somebody's only 150 pounds and they lose a pound. Could you talk about how, even though they both lost a pound, those two things are actually different from where that person is starting from?
Yeah, that makes sense. And like in a lot of ways, the 150-pound person lost like a higher percentage of their overall mass than a 200-pound person. So it is different, that progress. And
Hmm.
that's where I would also say like the overall history matters a lot too of the person on the program following the plan. Because someone who has a history of dieting, like let's say like maybe the 150-pound person doesn't have as much weight to lose, but they've done calorie deficits before. They've tried different fad diets. They've cut out carbs. They've done this. They've been around the weight loss game versus someone who's brand new. Those bodies are going to react really differently too. Like the person who's brand new, all of a sudden their body's like, "Whoa, check this out! Like we're changing. We're seeing all this progress." Where the person who's been around the game longer their body's like, no, we're on to this. Like, we're going to fight back against this. We know what you're doing. So that might take like more adjustments too for the person who maybe doesn't have as much weight to lose. It just might take a little bit more tweaking than someone who's brand new, like fresh into the game. And I remember this for me the first time I started tracking calories. I was like, this is amazing. Like everything's just like, I am losing fat, I'm building muscle, I feel great. And now, like, you go into a deficit 5 years later and it's like, okay, yay, I lost like 6/10 of a pound this week. I'm killing it. So it's just, it does change like the what progress looks like. And it's really like, what would be a good like metaphor there? It's almost like you're like pulling out of a bigger haystack or something like that. Like when you have a larger body to lose weight from versus like the smaller haystack, you might reach in and not be able to get like as big of a handful or something like that along those lines.
Mhm. That's a good analogy. We love that. We love that around here. Let's go. No, and that was actually one of the points that I wrote down, which so it's funny you kind of went into that, which is the the concept of dieting, previous dieting history. What have they been doing? Have they because like I will tell you this too. And although Mary likes to joan on me, that's a phrase we use in the DMV. Mary likes to joan on me because I'm always in a calorie deficit. I'm not always in a
You
calorie
are
deficit. Mary says
at
I
least
am, but
six
I'm
months
not.
out of the year, it seems like.
Oh, no. But all jokes aside, when I started this my deficit in December, I had not been in a deficit since February of 2025. So I was in maintenance and then I was in a surplus. So when I started back in the deficit, my body responds like that because it had had 10 months of not being in a calorie deficit. And so I think there's also like, has somebody been already losing 50 pounds? We had somebody just join the 8-week challenge actually and I just saw her initial Facebook post, Maddie Rose. We're excited to have you, Maddie. She
That's
listens to the
Maddie.
podcast. Yeah, she listens to the podcast. That's how she wanted to join. So, but I saw she had already lost like I think 50-ish pounds, right? So to Mary's point, she may need a little bit more adjustments than somebody who's brand new and totally fresh into the game because she's already lost some weight. She probably has a little bit of metabolic adaptation. She's probably going to tweak her calories a bit, tweak her protein a bit, tweak her workouts a bit. So it also just depends on, like Mary said, where you're at in the journey. And that has to play a role because you can't compare your stage 14 to somebody else's stage 1. It's not a fair comparison to make for you, for them, and you're going to drive yourself insane, which is what most people do. So that is definitely a big component of it. Let me ask you this too, Mary. Like, how much does somebody's BMR and their starting current body composition, muscle mass, how much does that affect their rate of progress usually?
Well, that depends. Like, are you saying if they have a lot of muscle on them already versus like essentially no
Mhm,
muscle and just starting to
mhm,
build it? Because when you have more muscle on you and go into a deficit, generally your body's going to burn more because muscle just requires more energy than fat does to like sustain life. So you're generally going to see maybe a faster rate of fat loss then. But then at the same time, someone who is following our program, starting to strength train, starting to build some muscle, that can really get you to a sweet spot also as far as losing fat and building muscle at the same time. But with, a higher body fat percentage, and I'll go with, or I'm sorry, with more muscle mass, and I'll go with myself because I have spent several years building muscle and haven't been in a deficit in like 3.5 or 4 years, and I happen to be in one now. Able to eat more and see results, like able to, here I sit, 155 pounds, eating about 2,100 calories a day, and I'm losing weight. Like it has me in roughly like a 400 to 500 calorie deficit where I'm seeing progress. And that's the result of muscle. It's the result of not like chronic dieting for years and having myself like constantly in a deficit as I'm pointing at Eric. No, no. So there are benefits there, and having that muscle mass is going to help, and that's why it's beneficial to. Well, you should always be strength training, no matter what your goal and position is
mhm,
in life is. It's never a bad time to get stronger. So
mhm.
just had to throw that in there too.
I agree, and it's funny as you were talking. I don't know if you saw. I muted my mic so people didn't hear me type. That's exactly what I wrote down, which was eating more calories while losing more weight? Because I hear this a lot from people like, well, why does this person get to eat so many more calories? And many reasons, but like one of them is the amount of muscle mass that you have on your body. And that will allow you to eat 1800, 1900, 2100, 2300 plus calories, depending on if you're a man or a woman or how tall you are and all these sort of things. But in the thesis, eating more food and still losing weight almost quote unquote quicker, because somebody doesn't have to take their calories down to 1400, 1500, 1600 to be in a calorie deficit anymore, because their maintenance calories are so much higher because of the lean muscle mass that they have built. And that also kind of piggybacks off of the last statement that we made about like, what is your previous dieting history? Have you just been chronically trying to hit cardio, 1,200 calories, never really staying consistent, never really getting on track, sticking with something sustainably long term, building muscle, increasing your metabolism? Because if you haven't been doing that, yeah, it's probably no shocker why your progress might be a little bit quote unquote slower than somebody else who, like Mary, she's spent the last 5 plus years building a large amount of muscle mass on her body. So she gets the benefits of that. But that takes time. And people also, when we talk about timelines, people also don't want to hear the fact that it takes a long time to build muscle and increase your metabolism and those sort of things. So, yeah, I like to just, again, use the analogy of the Lamborghini V8 engine. Like, it's a bigger engine. It's gonna burn more fuel. It's not as good on gas mileage, but that's what you want your body to be. You want your body to burn as many calories as possible. So that means you get to eat that many more calories and yet still be in a calorie deficit. So, yeah, those are all, I think, some really good starting points. Anything else to add to that before we move on?
No, I think our point on, to go with the topic of the podcast was it just kind of depends on your diet history and where you're starting, like, is kind of one of the main factors and how you're going to see progress and how quickly and when.
Yep, yep, agreed. Yeah, again, and so that it kind of goes into the next point here, which is we talked about some of the lifestyle factors, and so I want to first kind of say I think clients think they're the same as somebody else who's losing weight quicker or whatnot, but actually aren't. And I think this is where, as coaches, we can maybe display some of the coaching awareness or behind the scenes that maybe the listener doesn't always get to see because they don't coach the amount of people that we coach every single day and every single month. So I think the first point I want to talk about is NEAT. And people have heard me talk about this before on the podcast, but NEAT is just non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's all of the movement, all of the twitching, all of the fidgeting, all of the walking steps you do throughout the day. That is not a dedicated exercise. And so, Mary, if you want to, like, what have you seen in some of your clients that vary in NEAT? Because, I think with the background of this, like, a lot of people, they only know what they see. So like if they work at a desk all day and they struggle to get the amount of steps or they struggle to do this and that, like they can really only see that. So as a coach, what do you see the biggest differences in people's needs and maybe why somebody might see quicker progress versus somebody else?
Well, there's the lifestyle side of things. We have the people that come to us who sit at a desk all day, and it's a chore for them to get 4 or 5,000 steps a day. Like, we have to come up with real actionable strategies for that. And of course, as a coach, I'm taking that into consideration when giving the calorie goals and things like that. And I know in the Clubhouse app, we have like tell us your activity level so we can factor that into. Versus, I might be working with someone who works in construction or works in a warehouse, and immediately I see, those warehouse workers, they get some movement in. That is like one of
Yes.
the top ones I see, but they average 15, 16,000 steps a day without even trying. So to a point, it's like, okay, you're moving a lot. Like, this isn't really an issue. We don't need to worry too much about steps. Of course, like as a coach, we've still had to make adjustments there because there is like that adaptation to it. So sometimes, those people, we still need to tweak calories. We need to add in like a little extra zone to cardio still. But lifestyle factors are huge. Like someone, who's retired, maybe doesn't get out of the house till 9, 10 in the morning, really start moving till then, just like a shorter window of activity throughout the day and
Hmm.
everything. And maybe they're getting together with friends and sitting around in the evening Whereas a busy mom who's, up at 5 a.m. getting the house ready, getting herself to work, getting three kids to school, and then shuttling around after work for hours, they're moving, like
Mhm.
they're on the go. So that's like a more of a lifestyle factor there, and definitely more neat for them than
Mhm.
someone who, sits here yours truly at their desk. So
Same. Although when I was in Florida, no, because I'm outside of the beach. But yes, now here. Um, yeah, and I think a big thing I see or a big thing I hear is, well, I work out. I follow that person's workout. I work out 4 times a week for an hour. Like I'm doing the calorie deficit. Like why is this person seeing so much more progress than me? But even though you both work out 4 times a week for an hour, the rest of their day is drastically different. So their daily calorie burn is drastically different. And I just released a podcast on walking, but like I still to this day don't think people actually understand how many more, if we're just purely talking weight loss, how many more calories you can burn from going from 4,000 steps a day to 10,000 steps a day, 8,000 steps a day, 12,000 steps a day, whatever. Not just in that one day, but over the course of a week, because all of this stuff adds up over the course of a week. And Mary talked about it like if somebody is just on the grind, they're moving all day, they're working in a warehouse, they're a busy parent moving all around, like chasing their kids, running errands, doing whatever, and they're just walking and just so much more active than you are, then yeah, like that's going to play a role in the amount of progress they're going to make potentially versus yourself. Now, you could even it all out, but to the point that we were making earlier, for a lot of people who maybe don't have that much of an active lifestyle, to see the same rate or the same amount of progress would require you to go so much lower in your calories, which would then make it harder to stick to, which would then decrease your metabolism even more. So it's almost kind of like this vicious cycle of just lowering how many calories you can eat and slowing down your progress. And I know this sounds like terrible for people listening, but this is why we really try to focus on lifestyle changes, getting more steps, being more active, building more muscle, strength training, because there are things you can do to not just create the calorie deficit by eating less calories, but you want to burn as many calories as you can, not from a hit cardio standpoint, but just from a lifestyle perspective standpoint as well. So I think that's a huge one, getting more neat. I think the second kind of discussion point that we can maybe bring up here, Mary, is discussing the difference. Some people aren't going to like to hear this, but discussing the difference between I'm being good, I'm eating healthy, I don't go out to eat that much, I don't drink full sugar soda, versus like actually being in a calorie deficit, actually weighing your food, actually like having the data accuracy to back that up. Could you talk a bit about like what that looks like, Mary? Because people also they think they're doing all the things, but then I'll just use Jenna as the example, as our coach Jenna is getting ready for the her physique show. Like the level of attention to detail and accuracy she has to have for that versus just like somebody who's like, I'm eating healthier. Like those are two different worlds. And so maybe talk a little bit about that, Mary, if you can.
yeah, and that's kind of, and like you said, not everyone will want to hear this, but it is where tracking is very, very important to know what's actually happening. Not saying it's something you have to do forever, but it's a really powerful tool. Like, for example, someone could say, well, I'm eating healthy, I only eat 3 meals a day, something like that. And, say it's great that you're trying to eat healthy. Like, we're happy about that. But how many calories are you eating? Well, I'll say, send me pictures of everything you eat all day. Let's see what you're eating. And I'm looking and I'm estimating and I'm thinking, okay, so this is not a calorie deficit. Like this is more food than they realize. And that's why it's purely for education. Like when we encourage you to track, like we want you to know like how many calories you're eating, what an acceptable portion size is. Again, if you don't want to do it forever, don't. Like that's totally fine. You don't have to, but it is worth learning because that's where that diet fatigue comes in, where you feel like, oh, I've been in a deficit for, all year and I haven't lost any weight. It's like, well, that's because you don't actually know how many calories you're eating. Like you're trying and that's freaking exhausting. And I feel for that person because you're just almost like bashing your head against a wall trying to make that progress. when, if you could just lean into that discomfort of tracking, even if you don't think it's the best for you long term and you don't agree with it a little bit, just to learn, like, and just give yourself like that 30-day challenge to figure it out and learn what works for you. That can go like a really, really long way because it's exhausting to tell yourself you're doing something when you're not truly doing it and then be frustrated about the lack of results.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I have two follow-ups to that. Number 1, you have had your own weight loss journey. Did you ever struggle with that? Like, I'm doing everything right," or, like, did you, like, "No, like, I'm not doing everything right?"
Do you mean before I started tracking?
Uh-huh.
Um, I thought I was doing things right, I think. I think, it was kind of that like, well, I'm trying to eat healthier, like I'm trying to
Mhm,
do this, like I'm doing all this cardio at the gym, I'm on the elliptical for 45 minutes a night after work and so I thought I was doing those things right.
mhm.
But calorie tracking was just such a gift because then all of a sudden I was tracking my calories and I was like, well, look at this, I'm losing weight and it's like actually working and this is all I have to do and I can still have cookies. Like, so there were a lot of wins there. That's why,
Yeah,
I find it to be the best option
I
for so
love
many
that.
people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I love that. Okay, cool. That's number 1. And then number 2, again, I think, and there's so many ways. It's funny. There was I don't know how I came across this, but there was a World Star post on Instagram, and like somebody screenshotted a tweet of somebody being like, I don't understand. I'm only eating 1 meal a day. I'm walking 10K steps and I'm not losing weight. And all the comments I thought were going to be like, you're not in a calorie deficit. But they're like, it's starvation mode, or like, oh yeah, you gotta do this. And like I was like, you're eating too many calories. Like that's that fucking simple. Like that 1 meal, you're probably, and it's, again, going back to just not knowing, people truly don't understand. You could eat 3,000 calories in 1 meal like it's nothing. Like so easily. And you could do that 1 or 2 times a day easily. And so I'm only eating twice a day. You're eating 3,000 calories once and 2,000 calories the other time. You're eating 5,000 calories a day. Like that adds up clearly. So just knowing, or for example, something we see a lot as coaches, the weekends. Like, you're doing good throughout the week. Maybe you are tracking throughout the week, but then the weekends roll around. And I always tell people, and I'll that's the second kind of follow-up I have for you, Mary, and you can start to um, think about this if you'd like, is how we approach helping people on the weekends. Because I would always tell people, like, hey, you gotta have a plan. It's not gonna look the same as the weekday. I understand that. Like, you're not getting up at the same time, you're not going to bed at the same time, you don't have work, you don't have the routine, but like, we need to create a new plan. We need to create a new routine. You still have to have a schedule. People would always tell me, I thrive so much on routine. I'm like, so why do you have none on the weekends? If you know you thrive on it, create your own routine. Don't just like let life happen to you and use the excuse of it's the weekend and I'm going out and I don't know what I'm going to be tracking. Like, you have to make that up. So how would you go, like, how do you go about helping clients with their weekends?
Well, much of what you just said starts with creating structure. You might get a message from me like, midweek, like, hey, how does the upcoming weekend look? Anything going on that could be an obstacle? Anything we need to work through? They'll tell me like X, Y, or Z. Or sometimes they'll be like, oh, nothing going on. It'll be good. And I'm like, no, red flag. Like, we need things going on. Like, we need a plan. We're not just going to like sleep till 11 and then like
Mhm.
not eat for 3 hours and then figure it out. So yeah, we definitely come up with a plan, like what time are you going to wake up, how to start the day early with a win, whether we're getting a walk in, we're getting a workout in right away, we're having a high protein breakfast, and we'll break it down. Like we have a weekend planning worksheet available for us, the clubhouse coaches do, and we can send them over to clients. They fill this out, tell me everything you're going to do this weekend, what time you're going to have your meals, what your meals are going to be. Obviously, sometimes you don't know everything. There are some variables, but we work around it and set the rest of the weekend up for success. Like you might be, oh, I'm going out to dinner Saturday night and everything's going to be fucked all weekend because of it. It's like, well, no, like we're still going to have a good day Saturday. We can work that dinner out in, send me a picture of the menu, tell me where you're going. We'll come up with what to order and plan from there. And then Sunday, we're just getting back to normal. We're not going to sit around and feel bad about Saturday night. So it's just about that communication and making structure when there is no structure because people strive or thrive off of structure. That's what we all need. So as
Mhm.
coaches, we help to create that.
Yeah. Yep, agreed. And again, in our 8-week challenge that starts today, so you can today's the final day to join. So you can click the link in the show notes to join the 8-week challenge. You're gonna be doing it with everybody. So we're gonna tell our group, like, hey, weekend's coming up. What the fuck are your plans? Let's go. Make your plans. Be held accountable. Because when you're held accountable and when you have a plan, those two things generally lead to success. So I love that. Okay, so the last part from the lifestyle, and we could talk about many things here, but I want to touch on this is a little bit of both like lifestyle and also just like physiology, but the discussion around like stress and sleep,
Yep.
because a lot of the clients that we coach, they're busy parents, they're busy professionals, they have a lot of things going on in their life, they have a lot of stress. It's not just this like free flowing thing. So maybe we can talk about the science slash the importance of like what does high stress do? How does it impact water retention? How what are some strategies to help with stress reduction? How can we make sleep a priority? Like I know we were talking about this in one of our coaches meetings I forget when, but just like the true impact of like where people's brains go when they don't get sleep and how much they're impacted by not getting sleep and how much worse it makes their stress. So all of that being said, Mary, if you want to maybe start on that as a discussion point of what sleep and stress could maybe do to somebody's progress.
Yeah, high stress and poor sleep, like a chaotic work schedule, all of it greatly impacts hormones, water retention, and then you get into hunger levels being higher when you're underslept. You're not recovering well from your workout, so you're going to be more inflamed, potentially not able to push as hard in your workouts as that person over there who is just stress free and gets to hang out at the gym and do their whole workout and feel great, where you're just like underslept and trying to squeeze it in. So that can make a difference in progress too. Like if you're not able to perform or recover as well in your workouts for sure. So that stress, it's just gonna cause some instability with hormones and just maybe potentially slow down the movement on the scale. Like you can be doing everything right as far as following the plan, but the scale might not move like you want it to week because your body just isn't able to prioritize fat loss. Like it's trying to like survive in other ways. It's trying to work out the inflammation. It's trying to keep you alive and keep your stress levels lower and get you through the day without extreme hunger and things like that. So stress levels definitely make a big difference. Managing stress is really really important. Like I'll talk to clients about, well, let's identify like what's actually causing you stress in your life. Like you're telling me you're stressed out. Why? Like what's happening? Okay, so you just told me six things. Like four of them you have zero control over. Like it's not even like, I don't want to say it's not worth the stress, but worrying isn't going to take you too far. So we'll like pick through like what can we actually control here and what can't we control. Bedtimes are the best thing ever for adults. Like if you can be an adult with a bedtime, you are winning. And that is the best thing. Like
Agreed.
to keep yourself on a sleep schedule. So I know it's harder for some people than others, and it might not be as early as you want it to be, but still having it and trying to stick with that same sleep schedule on the weekends if possible. Like I know there's that person who's like, I can't do that. I work three jobs. I have to wait up for my kids to get home. I'm nervous because they're out and stuff like that. Like there are real lifestyle factors here and you can still see progress, but that's where like we would work with you to adjust that and make the needed adjustments there.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, all of that is it's just such great. It's such a great perspective because you've coached so many people, and I know a lot of people are listening to this like nodding along because we have coached a lot of people in our day. And the one point that I want to, in terms of like the topic of the podcast, want to drive home is a lot of times people can be losing fat, but because you're not getting enough sleep and you're higher stress, you have more you have higher cortisol levels and higher inflammation levels, which would mean you're retaining more water weight, potentially even gaining water weight, while at the same time you are losing fat. And this goes back to the paper towel roll analogy of like, you're having your sheets are pulled off of the roll, but you just can't see it yet in the short term. That higher stress, that inflammation, that water weight, that cortisol, that is masking the fat loss for now. And I always say for now because you will see a big drop. We call this the whoosh effect. Somebody won't lose weight for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And it's usually when they're super stressed, they're not recovering well, they're not sleeping well. They just have to get through that period of time, get back to sleeping a little bit better, have the stress levels come a bit down, recover better from the workouts, and then like boom, they drop 4 pounds on the scale in a week. And it's like, holy shit. It's like, well, you were losing fat that entire 3 or 4 weeks. The scale wasn't going down. It just wasn't showing on the scale yet because of the water weight and the inflammation, the stress, and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, again, I haven't been able to crack the code for people on like why they don't
Yeah.
prioritize sleep, you know? And to merit like to your point, I get it. Like maybe you have young kids or maybe like I understand.
But
But at
maybe
the
you
same time,
don't, and you're just staring at your phone and you're not
yes,
going upstairs to
exactly.
bed. So,
Yes.
there's a little of both. We're not letting you off
Yes.
the hook completely.
That's why I always hand run this because I'm like, I know everybody listening to this, myself included,
Yeah.
you can get an extra 30 minutes of sleep if you just get the fuck off of your phone, make it a priority, set the bedtime. Like you can, like at the very least 15 to 30 minutes, you can make that happen. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a lot. Like an extra 30 minutes of good quality sleep. That would make a big difference for people. Less
Yeah.
stress, less hunger, more energy, push harder in workouts. So all that stuff. So
Yeah, and I know you were talking about patterns on the scale, and I know it's something people need to hear about. And another really common one I'll see is like people see a new low. So a client will see a new low. And then after that new low for 4 or 5 days, weight goes back up and then back up a little more, and then back up a little more. And they're messaging me like, well, I lost the weight, but I'm gaining it all back now. And I see it like it says, no, you'll get another new low in like 7 or 10 days. Just hang in there because that's your body's reaction. It's like, "Oh my god, we're losing weight. We don't want this. Like, we're gonna hold on to some water. We're gonna, we're in a stressful situation because we're losing body fat. We need that body fat." Your body doesn't want to change. So it sees that as a stress signal. So you keep going and you'll see that
mm,
new low again, kind of like how Eric said with that whoosh.
yeah. Well, and again, coming from Coach Mary, who has coached thousands of people, it's so interesting to see those weight graphs on the chart, right? Like, because we see it like down on this weight chart, then it like slowly creeps back up. But then there's a big drop down again in the weight chart, slowly creeps back up. So this we're telling you, the listener, this information because we have done this for years. We have done this over and over and over, seen it thousands of times. And we want to reassure you, like, if these things are happening to you, it's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not doing anything wrong. If you hit a new low and your scale spikes up for a couple of days after that, that's normal because it will go back down and you will keep that trend of keep hitting new as long as you keep hitting new lows month over month, that's what matters the most. So love that. Okay, so slightly transitioning into kind of the next point, talking about a little bit more of the mindset, kind of the psychology, right? And I think the goal here is I think w- yes, we've talked about the science a little bit. We've talked about the lifestyle factors a little bit. I think this is where we want to help people from what's going on in between your ears. And so, again, you can start on this one if you would like, Mary. Just kind of discussing social media, discussing like what we see, discussing somebody's like 30-day transformation, discussing somebody's progress for photos. Like, what would you tell somebody who is seeing this sort of stuff and maybe feeling like, well, I'm not losing weight as quickly as them, or I don't have my progress pictures look as quickly as them. Why do they see this amount of progress, but I only see this? What would you tell that person?
Oh, I would tell them, well, what the hell are you looking at? Like, do you even know this person? Do you know if it's real? Why do you trust them? Like, what exactly are you looking at? I'm not a big, I don't like to say I'm not a big social media person, but I don't really follow or look at really anything because to me, it's just like, like, none of this is real life unless it's Eric. You should follow and listen to Eric. But other than that,
Thanks, Mary.
so I mean, the comparison game, it's just not real. Like nothing. I saw a picture of a snowy beach and a fox ran across it, and I was like, no way, that's real. Like I don't believe anything. I just think everything's AI generated now. So I just didn't believe it, and I don't think you should believe or worry about like I mean, the amount of stuff and people in the world and content on Instagram, this thing is being pushed across your screen and it's like just such a small sampling size. Like if you were to actually think about like the whole world and everything you're doing, the progress you're seeing, you're doing good. Like don't compare yourself to, like that one little still image you saw on a screen. That's not the progress you need to see. Often slower progress truly is like what doesn't feel fast is more sustainable. Like slower responders to a plan actually end up with the most sustainable results over time and even better body composition long term. Whatever you're comparing yourself to, you don't know what this person is doing, like what they're putting in their body, their history, where they're looking to go. So it's really just not worth it at all. And if you're following a plan and program that makes you feel your best, that's allowing you to see any progress in the right direction and you're still able to feel good, that's golden right there. Like just keep doing that. That's going to get you where you want to be. And, at any age, at any point in your life,
Mhm.
unless you're like, under direct orders from a doctor to do something and like, pay attention to all that too. But, in the basic scheme of things, if you're feeling good and seeing results, don't worry what other people are doing at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, Sophie, co-host Sophie sent me something the other day where she saw a video of this girl did like an AI transformation to promote her coaching, like promote like, "Oh, well, this is my client and this is what we did." And I was like, it's just crazy. Like you
Yeah.
just can't, yeah, it's
We could
nuts.
put that
It's
together in 15 minutes.
I
Like,
know.
yeah, be like, look
Well
at this. Yeah.
well, we don't
I
need to.
wouldn't know how, but
Yeah.
yeah, maybe
I would
Google
know
it.
how, but we don't need to because we have the real thousands of
Yeah.
transformation photos that are real, so we don't need to do that. Maybe she does, I'm not sure. But nonetheless, yeah, so that's that, but also I wanna also throw this at people, something to noodle on for the audience out there. Maybe that person did see crazy results in 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, but what about the previous 5 years of failed dieting? You see, it's like the tip of the iceberg. Like people only see the good parts, especially on social media. You only see what people want you to see. Nobody's gonna come out and be like, "I failed my diet, my calorie deficit for the past 5 years." Like they're not gonna talk to you about that. They're like, "Look at these progress pictures. My scale went down 5 pounds this week." They're only gonna share the good stuff. So you just don't, it's truly like only reading one chapter of a book, like in the middle of the chapter. It's like you also don't know what happens after. Like somebody loses 20 pounds on keto in a month. Well, where are they in 3 more months after that? Where are they in
Yeah.
6 more months? Where are they at next year? You're only looking at one chapter in the book.
Yeah.
Nobody would ever base a whole book off of one chapter. So why are you basing one progress picture you see and then turning around in the mirror and being like, "Oh, that's not me. I'm not seeing." It's like, no, you can go lose 20 pounds in a month doing keto, but then gain it all back and then some. It's like, is that what you want? Like, because that's how the story plays out. That's how the book finishes. Is that what you want? I don't think so. So yeah, it's just honestly, it really is like pointless. Like it doesn't bring any sort of value, maybe other than quote unquote seeing what's possible. And the only reason I say that is because a lot of people, I will get feedback sometimes when I send emails with like progress pictures. People will be like, damn, like that person has my body type. So like they've lost weight, so I can too. So like maybe just to show that it's possible, but like the timeline or the method or how fast, it doesn't fucking matter. Like they're just driving themselves insane.
Yeah. And, just because someone is quote unquote doing better than you isn't a reason to stop. Like, that's such a
Right.
almost like a childish mindset about things. Like, it's like, no, I'm going to keep going and develop myself. Like, take my powerlifting, for example. Like, I don't look at someone who's excelling at their bench press more than I am. And I'm like, well, I'm never going to bench press again. That's it. Like, I'm not doing that. So, it's just about really like just work on the personal development side of things and your own wins and your own growth.
Mhm. Yeah, complete side note. Well, 2 things. Number 1, I I felt like that, well, not like that, but like I felt this past week when I was in Miami, my friend Pat and I went to go work out at a gym, and this gym was just like a bunch of meatheads, just like with their shirt off, like loud music, just on steroids. And I'm like, fuck, I look like a little skinny bitch. I'm like, this sucks, man. But then I'm like, hey, this is fuel for me to push myself and get better and build more muscle. So I was gonna say it's like a loser mentality. You said childish. I think childish is probably nicer. I was gonna say loser because that's like, this person is doing better. I'm gonna quit. It's like, okay, you're just a fucking loser then. I don't know what else to fucking tell you.
Well, you're
So
not going to win, that's for sure. So,
that's,
I mean,
well, if you don't win, you are a loser. That is the real talk we give around here. And then number two, just a complete shout out. It's actually funny you just said personal development. I, I was gonna say this, but I don't know why I didn't, but, like, I'm gonna say it now. You, Mary, and I'm more so saying this for you other than people listening, your personal development has grown so fucking much from when I first met you. Like, I was even thinking about the last podcast, like, the very first podcast that we did when you were, like, a client. Like, I was just thinking of, like, that to now and just, like, how much more how much more level you are, how much more like thoughtful you are, how much more you've worked on like some of these things in your life, the way you communicate, the way you speak. Like you are just a fucking beast, Mary. So I just have to tell you that just first and foremost because I want you to know like and it's really showing on this podcast. Like I really think you're doing an amazing job with this podcast. So thank you for that. Everybody can thank Mary for making the podcast great today. So thank you so much, Mary. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I don't
You're welcome.
that's very nice of you to say.
I'm glad.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I like doing it.
Course. Of course, we can tell. All right, cool. So then the next part, let's talk, Mary, about maybe some of the dangers, quote unquote, dangers of fast weight loss. And you could take this from a mental standpoint, you could take this from a sustainability standpoint, you could take this from a physiological standpoint. What are some of the dangers? Because people will see the faster progress, but again, they don't know the full story, the full picture. So what are some of those?
Well, like physiologically, it can lead to a lot of loss of muscle too, which I am never a fan of doing. Muscle, you need muscle, very good for your metabolism and just your quality of life. So losing too fast and too big of a deficit, really dangerous in that way. But then also, I think the biggest thing is the sustainability side of things. You know, a huge red flag for me, for most people with coaching, is if they're too perfect. I'm like, no, 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 we can't keep, we can't keep doing this. Like we can't just, there is that certain person that can sustain that and keeps going with it, but it's a pretty small percentage. Like you're better off giving yourself a little leeway, a little more of a moderate deficit, allowing yourself maybe, on a Saturday night to be able to go out and enjoy a dessert, maybe have a couple of drinks with friends and be able to like move on. That's a very important skill to develop too. So it's not just about being perfect and seeing fast results. It's about developing skills you can keep with you your whole life because there's always going to be things to navigate. And if you're hiding at home for your entire weight loss journey because you're afraid to go out to eat and you don't want to go to this social situation, that's going to backfire. Sure, it might lead to that fast progress, but eventually you're going to need to learn how to like face that situation. And even like things like cutting out entire food groups, that's why we say things like that aren't sustainable because you're going to need to learn how to like reintroduce them. Yes, they might create that faster progress, but in the long run, are you going to be able to keep that progress? Because as we say, like the way you lose the weight, you have to be able to keep it off that way too. Like you have to be able to maintain that balance. So that makes a big difference. And then mentally can just be so draining, like to lose weight that fast. Like sometimes it can actually like mentally drain you, lead to some brain fog and just really negative biofeedback there. Sleep, mood can go to shit, which you don't want any of those things too. So really not worth it. I can tell you as someone who's lost a weight, like I don't remember the dates I was losing weight. Looking back, I wouldn't give a shit if I knew if it took 6 months or 18 months. I would just be glad I'm here. So it's not like you're going to remember long term, well, oh, I could have lost it in 7 months, but it took me 14. Like you're not going to care one bit about
Hmm.
that. So that's not worth worrying about.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a phenomenal point. Thank you for making that, Mary, because I think people think so right now. They want to lose weight right now. They want to lose weight for this summer. But like to your point, as somebody who's not only lost the weight but been able to maintain that weight loss now, like it didn't matter if it took you 7 or 14 or 18 or however many months. You're just fucking glad you're here and being able to maintain it and not having to go back to what you were, which is like what most people struggle with. And we often say it's like the faster it comes off, the harder it is to keep it off. And I think people truly need to understand that. And again, it's funny you bring this up because in our coaching, if somebody's just 100% perfect, and it depends on the person, but we're often like, Hey, like, no, this is not actually a good thing. Like, we want you to go have a dinner out, go off track with your calories one day. You have to experience that because at some point it's going to happen. And especially if like you were to join this 8-week challenge, which you can if you click the link in the show notes. You can only join today. Today's the last day, but you can still join if you click the link in the show notes of the podcast. When you join the 8-week challenge, a lot of people have the motivation to get started. They want to stay on track. They're super dialed in. And then, like, inevitably, a week in, or 2 weeks in, or 3 weeks in, you're going to have a day where you go off track. And guess what? Like, we want that to happen, because the quicker we get that out of the way and we can just educate you and coach you on how to get back on track, and you do get back on track and you keep seeing progress, then you're like, oh, I don't have to be perfect to see progress. It's like the huge mindset shift and the huge game changer for people, which is also why I think just coaching in general is so important. So, yeah, I think those are a couple of great points you made there, Mary. I would also just say, too, and this is maybe getting a little bit more, I don't know, like a little bit more serious, but the, losing weight is a real, like, dopamine hit. And just like anything else, too much dopamine is not a good thing. And what I mean by that is, if you're somebody who you're so restrictive with your diet, you're so low in your calories, you are doing so much cardio, you're not going out to eat with friends, and you're just like creating this little bubble for yourself, this restrictive bubble for yourself where you're not living the life that you actually want to live. What that turns around is a very unhealthy, disordered relationship with food and with exercise. And this is where, like, people will mentally struggle. You know this, Mary. We get people who come to us with some pretty disordered eating habits sometimes because of the so restrictive, fast way that they were trying to lose weight from the beginning. And so, again, kind of speaking from the perspective of, like, Mary and I are up here in, like, the top of the ship, like, we can see the iceberg ahead. Like, we're telling you, there are some negative things that come from you losing weight too quickly. So, like, I understand that you think it's what you want right now, but it's almost like, I would imagine when people have kids and it's like their kids want to do something, and you're like, no, that's a fucking terrible idea. Like, don't do that. They don't understand, the kids don't understand why in the moment, but like their parents are looking out for them. It's for their best interest. So I think that's a part of it too, where don't just think about the short term, like Mary said. Don't just think about, well, I don't care, Mary. I just want to lose the weight now. I'll figure it out later. You won't be saying that if you develop a fucking eating disorder because of the way you approach this. And so I just really try to encourage people to think about it from that perspective as well.
Yes, definitely agree there.
Love that.
We're
Cool. Okay. So then one of the last, maybe some of the last things we'll touch on here, Mary, is now that we've talked about progress, the rates of progress, all this, how how do you help people redefine progress? What are some maybe non-scale victories? What are what should they expect from a scale? Like, what how do you start to redefine progress for people so they can be better expectations, but also just like a healthier relationship with it?
Yeah, because progress does show up different, and even first progress shows up different for a lot of people. So, like, if you're early on and you're like, "Oh, I expected, this big swoosh in the scale right away," there's other ways that progress shows up even early on, and it could be, simple something like the jeans fitting differently, or being able to close a belt like by another loop, even noticing that you're able to manage cravings a little better. Moving better in the gym, feeling better in the gym, being less winded, um, you know, digestion improving, all of those things. And then, of course, like your measurements and pictures, which we track also. So there's a lot of other things that we can look at that shows that, like, yes, the needle is being moved. You're making progress. If fat loss is your goal, like your measurements going down, your clothes fitting differently, those are all signs that it's actually happening. And even like being able to manage the cravings, eating like more calmly, like, without like a lot of fear surrounding food, just being able to like sit down and have a meal anxiety free. And kind of what Eric said about like the unhealthy eating patterns we'll see, like when people come to us, I'll get a panicked message like, oh, I had a horrible day yesterday, XY, like I did this wrong, I messed up. And I'll look at the food logs and I'll be like, they were within their calorie range. What's going on here? So I'll message back like, did you not track some things? Like, is everything okay? Well, no, but I had pizza. I'm like, well, that's okay. Like you can have the pizza. Like you didn't have to say no to that. I'm like, you still hit your goals. Like maybe protein was a little low, but that's okay. We'll get back to protein today. Like no worries. So like that's progress. If you can like have that pizza and realize, okay, I can still do this. Like it's not like the
Mhm.
end of my journey and I can still keep making progress. So the mindset side of things is really big too when it comes to how we measure and gauge progress, not just the scale, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another thing that I'll hit on for people listening too is, like, speaking of mental progress, we also as coaches, we don't like, our goal is the way that we coach, it's so much more than just, "Here's your workouts, here's your calories, let me know how you did and have fun." It's like, even as we're talking about this, I'm thinking of, like, a huge win, a huge victory of progress would be somebody's scale goes up. But instead of letting it ruin their entire day, they're just pissed off for an hour and they get the fuck over it and they just keep doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? Like that in and of itself is amazing progress because what will that lead to for everybody listening? Let's talk through this. Let's say you are somebody right now who you step on the scale, it ruins your entire day, maybe even your entire week. And then you just like go off track. You say, fuck it. I'm just going to eat whatever this week. I'm going to drink all the wine. Fuck it. And then I'll restart on Monday. So as opposed to doing that now, you've worked to a point where, yeah, cool. You're still kind of pissed off the scale went up, but you get over it in an hour. The mood and your energy levels for the rest of the day, you're not like in a bad mood anymore. Your actual quality of life is better. And you're still hitting your calories that day. You're still hitting your steps that day. What does that all now lead to? It leads to you will make progress on the scale versus the scenario one, you will not make long term progress on the scale because you're quitting and saying, fuck it. Whereas this over here, not only are you making progress with the mental and emotional side of things, but that will then lead to the long term progress of the physical progress that you're looking to see on the scale and in your body. So all of these ways. And I think that's where, again, we can just continue to plug our coaching here because as coaches, we're going to be able to see things for you that you're not able to see for yourself. This is just how this works. And it's also how we coach. We're not just going to say, oh, you didn't hit your calories. Try harder next week. Like that's what most coaches do. And I understand why that would be fucking worthless, but that's not what we do. Like another thing about progress that we often freak out over is you're off track. Like Mary said earlier, like the person who's like, "Oh my god, it's terrible." And it's like, what happened? Like, did you eat 6,000 calories?" Like, "No, but I had an extra slice of pizza and it was over by 200 calories." And it's like, "Okay, well like your over used to be 6,000 calories and you just said fuck it the entire weekend. Now it's just like you went over, but you're already back on track." It's like that is progress right there. And there's just there's endless ways. You're only limited by your imagination, but again, so many ways to make progress, and I think that's why you should get a good coach, like the coaches we have to help you out on this journey.
And at least, join the 8-week Clubhouse challenge. I'm excited about that.
I'm
I
very
might
excited
jump
about.
into it. I'm doing I started my deficit when
Yeah,
the one-on-one challenge started, but now I'm
right?
like, maybe keep it rolling through the end of this one. My wedding's not
Okay.
till April, so I have a little more time to
Yep.
work with there.
Yep, Mary's getting married. Mary is getting married, everybody. So we can all wish Mary a great marriage. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'm excited for the challenge too. I'm excited. I really am excited for the group aspect. I think you know me. I like the clubhouse retreat. That's why I like the retreat. We're all there. We're all having good energy. It's really really fun. So I'm really excited for the challenge. But yeah, I mean, Mary, this has been an amazing podcast, and so thank you so much for all of this. Last, just a couple of takeaways for you guys to quick recap. Again, if you're frustrated with timeline, check these three boxes before you go and freak out or change your plan. Number one, audit your accuracy. Are you actually tracking everything or are you just like making good meals and thinking that's correct? Number two, do what you can about your stress and your sleep and your lifestyle and your neat and your walking steps. Are you getting good sleep? Are you setting the bedtime? Make sure to check that. And then number three, zoom out. Look at things from not just the number on the scale today, but zoom out and look at it from 6 months ago until now. And people, they often get upset with themselves because of the gap of where they are now to where they want to be. And I would try to encourage you to instead look at where you started and where you are now. Automatically, that will make you feel better about the progress that you are seeing. So, those are the couple of quick things. Any last notes for the listeners, Mary?
No, I think that's all great. Just a reminder, like weight loss, not a race at all. It's just a relationship with your body and do not quit on yourself. That is the only way that you fail, especially if you're comparing yourself to someone else.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better. Well, listen, guys, thank you for listening to the podcast today. We really appreciate it. Again, if you're interested in coaching or the 8 week challenge, last day to sign up for the 8 week challenge as you're listening to this. Maybe you're listening to this on Tuesday and it's already closed. So I'm sorry to hear about that, but you should have acted sooner. But if you are listening to this on Monday, last day to sign up, click the link in the show notes and we will see you inside.
Thank you all.